Guess we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to Behind the Build, how Baylor teams create meaningful and accessible online learning.
You can advance.
Okay, so here presenting today, I'm Lindsey Morris. I'm a learning experience designer at Baylor. I'm joined by Kristen Risinger, who is also a learning experience designer. And we have Dr. Ryan Shelton, who's a lecturer in our online learning unit in the College of Education. Unable to be with us today was Dr. Leanne Howell, who's a senior lecturer in the online learning unit, but she has been a very big part of the online process and the partnership between us and the School of Education. Okay, so today we're going to go over the learning design team, an overview. We're also going to go over the online learning unit. We're going to provide a course redesign example, and we're going to talk about adult learning principles and the connections with universal design for learning, and really dive into why the partnership between our department and the School of Education matters, but more in general, how the partnership between learning designers and faculties and entire programs really matter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give an overview into the learning design team specifically. So we have four major roles that work together to support the online course development process. So like I said, Kristen and I are learning experience designers, and we are working hand in hand with the faculty members to create the course content. We also work with our LMS content specialists who are Canvas geniuses, and they take our ideas and turn them into what the students see in Canvas. We also have interactive experience designers who take ideas from the faculty and can build scenarios and interactives and things that are really going to take that content up to the next level and enhance that student experience. We also have instructional support specialists. We have one here today. She's not in the room, but they basically take the course when we're done. We hand it off to them, and they support that faculty member throughout the life of the course until it comes back to a learning experience designer for redesign. So faculty members are always able to take on iterative course changes, make updates as they see needed, as they see tongue-tied as they see fit, until, like I said, we come back and can do a complete overhaul.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the online learning unit because that is the partnership that we're describing today. So I work as a faculty member in this unit. We call it a unit because we're only one program right now. We're building additional programs, so we're not called a department, but that's basically our department. We're in the School of Ed, and our largest and primary program is an EDD in Learning and Organizational Change. And so that's the program that I teach in. We're back maybe one or two slides still. Oh, that one. Perfect. Thank you. We've got approximately 400 students at any given time. They're in trimesters, and so our schedule is a little bit different. But for their EDD, they are working, it's a 3-year program, and their dissertation is embedded in those 3 years. We have approximately 400 students. 55% of those are students of color, 71% of those are female, and 37% of them work outside of education fields. So we have people from K-12, higher ed, business, medical, military, people who work in nonprofits. And so anyone who's interested in creating organizational change by focusing on learning in the workplace, those are the people that tend to come to us for their EDD. So we've also got a new master's degree program coming. It starts this fall. But we wanted to talk about this partnership between our learning design team and this specific program because we have been offering this EDD for about 4 years, and it's come time for all of our programs or all of our courses to be updated. And so we've established this partnership to go through a process to update every single course in our program. And we're also working on creating the new courses for the new master's degree. So we are updating all of our course titles and our descriptions. And we're also looking at all of our courses to make sure that we are meeting the Oscar standards and addressing web content accessibility. So we're going to be talking about those things a little bit today. But as part of this partnership, we've dedicated time to redesign 2 or 3 courses per trimester. And the way that that works is we start off with a memorandum of understanding so that we know the roles and responsibilities for each person who's involved in the redesign. And there are also frequent leadership check-ins. So on my end, I will get emails from leadership in my department saying like, hey, how are things going? How can we help? And I assume my colleagues in learning design also get those same emails. Because our leaders, both in our program and in the learning design group, are working together to make sure that everything is running perfectly. So we wanted to share with you, sorry, I know this font is a little bit small here on the slide, but we wanted to share with you sort of like what the life of a redesign for a course is. So in the term prior to the actual redesign, I, as a faculty member, received a questionnaire from the learning designers kind of asking, what do you want these meetings to look like? Do you want to work on things live together, or do you want to set goals and then both go work on your goals and then come back the next week? Also in that term, we had our first meeting. Lindsey and I actually just did this last fall, and we just did our redesign trimester in the spring. During the fall, I was also tasked with working on a course map and working on course objectives so that when we started meeting in the trimester where the bulk of the work was taking place, we tried to focus each week on a week of the course in the class. And sometimes we tried to double up, but every week we were looking at what's going on this week, what do I need to do, what do I need to give you, so then it can be translated and put into the LMS so we can decide the interactives so that we can work on improving what we previously had. And so that's also where the course building took place. So not only did Lindsey and I meet every week, but also there was a team member on the back end that I didn't meet with who was working on building the course as we went along. And the way that we facilitated that was through a notebook. So I would go through a digital notebook. I would add the things that I wanted in our LMS. And then on the back end, somebody would come along each week and incorporate that into a pre-made template that we have for our courses. So for that whole trimester, Lindsey and I had weekly meetings. We also scheduled time for me to do all of the video recordings for the courses. They're they're flipped and they're like front loaded. So students do a lot of async in our program, and they do that async in preparation to come for a live session. So we planned for the things that went in Canvas, including those recordings. And then we also planned for like all of the things that are needed to host the live sessions as well. So that all occurred in a redesigned trimester. Following that trimester, there's additional time set up. So after kind of everything has been built in Canvas, all of the videos are done and edited. Lindsey and I scheduled a walkthrough to go through kind of the pages of the course and make sure that we were happy with the way that it looked for anything that we wanted to update. So we had a kind of a trimester built in for, you know, you might need extra time to create your videos, or you might need extra time to adjust an assignment or whatever. Then in that fourth bubble there, you'll see course implementation. So that's the first time the course is going to be student facing. And then as Lindsey mentioned, there's always iterations. So what will end up happening is after the students have access to the new revised version of the course, faculty will be asked for feedback, and then also we'll receive student evaluations as well, and then we'll make more iterations. So we just wanted to give you, I don't know, one example, and not to make this super complicated, but the course that I actually teach is an instructional design course. So the things that we are doing like behind the scenes with my learning designers are the things that I'm also teaching my students how to go do in their own workplaces. And a little bit different, right? Because they're professionals who work in all sorts of kinds of organizations and businesses. In that course, what we end up doing is I have them pick a problem in their workplace, and then I have them think about, in order to solve this problem, you would need to create a training. And we talk about the instructional design for that training in their workplace. Kind of my I don't know how to say this. My tagline is like, have you ever been to a meeting where you walked out of the meeting and you said, this should have been an email? Like, the whole point of this course is so that you can design meetings or trainings that when your people leave those meetings or trainings, they don't say, well, that should have just been an email. And so it's been really, I think, helpful for me to engage in this work with a learning design team, because I'm learning from them and also using that to improve the course as well. But every week I don't know, we did a whole bunch of things that I really appreciated. A whole bunch of things. One of those things is we put a quote kind of like on a landing page for students. We had to pick a visual. So every week I picked just a fun, like, single line drawing visual. That's not important. I'm just really proud of my visuals that I chose from week to week to week. But if we go one more slide, what that looked like on the back end was this notebook where I made all of these choices, instructional choices of what I wanted to go into the course, put it into this notebook. So then somebody behind the scenes could help facilitate that. And also at the same time, Lindsey was able to look at it and give me some feedback to help me improve the course as well. So then it was put into Canvas. We're also really focusing on time on task, because that's just something we hadn't really been including in our courses. So we worked really closely to make sure we knew how long everything, or how long we thought everything would take students. And then I don't remember what I was going to say about the picture on the right, other than that's what it looked like in Canvas. So, yeah, I really enjoy the module progress bar. Like, there are lots of neat things incorporated into the course that we didn't have before. And speaking of neat things that we've incorporated into the course, I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what our interactives kind of look like, and kind of the extra special sauce that we're able to offer our faculty and our students by having this service on our team. And one thing that we always try to think about, A, with interactives is, okay, what's the instructional objective? B, what is the value? Like, what's the extra stuff that we're bringing to them that it wouldn't be, it could just be a PowerPoint, but why are we making this interactive? And C, we also, that's a heavy investment item in the course. It takes a lot of time for our learning experience design, or our interactive learning experience designers to create. So we like them to serve multiple purposes if possible. So when we were thinking about the EDD program, obviously they're writing a dissertation. Obviously, these people really need to be comfortable in the library, know the resources, know who to reach out to when they have a problem, et cetera, et cetera. So we landed on this virtual libraries tour. That wasn't just teaching them how to get these resources. It was literally bringing them on campus, building that connection with students who don't get a whole lot of face time on campus, and not just explaining the space, but actually introducing them to the people in the library. They met the librarian who they would need to go and meet with. They even in some cases heard their voices and, had interactions with. And so that was a really meaningful, interactive opportunity that served multiple purposes. And also, while we're doing that, heavy on our hearts and minds is always accessibility. And so talking about it being a learning design class, also the new MS in learning design and technology, it's really important to actually practice what you preach. So we want to make sure that it's shown. And so that's what this looks like in our courses. It looks like not just the automatic captioning. It looks like video transcripts are just kind of standard. It looks like screen reader friendly versions of PDFs that are just there and offered. And called out, but not in a like obnoxious way, just like, hey, if you need it, it's here. And that's just the standard that we bring to elevate, not just to meet the law, but to, be a step ahead. And that brings us to, really how do we think about adult learning principles, universal design for learning, accessibility, all of that. And when we talk about student-centered design, it's really not a buzzword or a technical term for us. It's really about empathy and how do we design for humans who have a lot of competing responsibilities. They have family, they have friends, they have jobs, they have life experiences. And, so when we design with empathy, we're honoring those realities. And the goal is to set every student up for success from day one. And we do that by leveraging a blueprint for inclusive and impactful learning that looks like Knowles's andragogy. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone in this room, but we know that learners need the learning to be meaningful, relevant, self-directed. So what does that look like? So for self-directed, that looks like lots of choices in our class, whether that's the type of assignment they choose, where they're putting their energies and research, all of those things. We're putting that in the hands of learners, because not only does that make it self-directed, it also makes it immediately relevant for students. They know why they're doing it. And we also build in lots of opportunities to reflect and leverage their prior experience. Now, whether they're actively working in the field that they aspire to or not, we all bring all of our experiences to everything, and that all has value. And so, particularly thinking about the new MS in Learning Design and Technology, we've structured the whole thing around a portfolio. And that portfolio is going to travel with the students after graduation, but it's not something that they develop in the last term. It's something they're actively working on throughout the entirety of the program. So they can start hustling. They can start, putting themselves out there, trying to get an interview, doing all those things. So all of their work is not only self-directed in the field that they want, they're leveraging their prior experience, and they're telling you why it's relevant. And all of that is, I want to work here. I want to be in this field, and this is how I'm going to do it. So another thing that we believe is that designing for variability is an extra. It's absolutely essential. And so what that looks like is really embracing universal design for learning. We could talk about this all day long, but really, again, the core of that is it looks like designing for choice and flexibility in the program. Reducing the cognitive load for one almost inevitably reduces it for all. And that's a goal across the board. So again, what does this look like? This looks like lots of choices and assignments. It looks like lots of choices in how they take the information in. Do they want to read the article? Do they want to listen to a podcast about the article? Do they want to watch the video, but also read the transcript? All of those things. We try to provide, what's the core nugget, and then make sure that we're presenting it in multiple ways. And at the end of the day, we have to honor adults all have limited bandwidth, and we respect that by eliminating the barriers for all learning. And that helps us build bridges to facilitate, learner success. So ultimately, we believe that empathy isn't just kindness, it's a design strategy that's rooted in research. When learning experience designers and faculty members, partner, and we think about, what should the students learn? What might get in their way? Those are kind of common questions, but we take it a step further. Like, how can we remove that barrier? And we commit to creating meaningful and accessible online learning. And that allows us not only to push the envelope of what we can build, but of what our students can ultimately achieve together. And so Lindsey is going to take it from there and talk a little bit more about, why our partnership is unique.
So in everything that we've said so far, we understand that there are parts of our partnership that are unique and not everyone has the resources to do. We've talked about course builders and interactive experience designers, videographers, and we know that those aren't resources, but we hope that there are things that you can still take forward, even if you don't. But one of the things that we've been able to do in all of our program is come together and build program-wide course templates with shared input from faculty. So for example, Ryan and I just developed this instructional design course, but I guess 2 years ago now, we also worked on a larger team to develop the template that's carried across the program. So students see consistency and predictability across course navigation throughout the whole program. And then just speaking in a larger sense of program level design, I've been the dedicated designer on this program since it started. And all of our programs have dedicated designers, and some of them are larger programs. They might even have 2 dedicated designers, but you have consistency with your designer as you go through, and that builds trust with the faculty members and the program administrators, the program leadership. That also goes into our program's expertise in design and online instruction. Our team brings the online instruction knowledge. The faculty members are bringing the content knowledge, but we've got the videographers that are able to present the material in the best possible way, or help provide advice to the faculty members on that, as well as the learning experiences that we gave you an example of. Another thing that is really great is that our faculty members are able to receive course releases. So I know Ryan mentioned the memorandums of understanding, and so part of that agreement is developing the course within the time frame, but you also get a course release. So you're able to dedicate the time that's required, because this really is a very time intensive process. When we talk about the design notebook, I know we just kind of gave a brief glimpse, but there was a lot of text on that page, and each module had, I mean, probably 10 or so pages filled out very thoroughly, from objectives to instructions to maybe little call outs that, hey, I need the designer to know this, I need the course builder to know this. But that notebook also does a really great job of scaffolding how we approach the design. Like Ryan said, we started with course objectives and course mapping last fall, which honestly, across all of our programs is a unique approach, because their program leadership recognized that the time frame that we had within the semester, when you add in the objectives and the course mapping, made the notebook development, the module specific development time crunch just a little too much. So we're able to introduce all of that slowly through the design notebook. And then, like we said, post-development support. Ryan and I are finishing our course walkthrough. We're waiting on video. We recorded that previously in the semester, but once we've got that back, once we've got it captioned and transcripts in, I will transition the course over to our instructional support specialist, and she'll help Ryan get the course ready for upcoming semesters. And that's who Ryan will go to and say, hey, I noticed assignment XYZ. The students really struggled with understanding this. Can we make a switch? And then they'll help her with that process. So like I said, it's unique, and we might not have the resources, but I think there are things that everyone could build in from this process. So like I said, why it matters. Our partnership and building trust helps drive innovation program wide. So not only can Ryan take what she learns and show other faculty members, program leadership sees what's being done, and then they can envision more for the programs themselves. These relationships also help drive more difficult conversations. Things like PowerPoint accessibility, or the diagrams that you include, and the extra work that needs to go into that. I know we've all come across classes with hour-long lecture videos, so we can have conversations about why we don't want to provide hour-long lecture videos, which, like I said, ties right into accessibility as well. But overall, we ultimately want a positive student experience, and we want to provide resources for all students. Like we said, it's there. They can see that it's there. And we know, especially as you get into college and even further into graduate education, that students are less likely to declare their disabilities and ask for those accommodations. So we just want to provide everything that we can to them. And it's that leadership buy-in, and knowing why accessibility is important helps us carry that across all of the programs. And like Ryan said, this is unique. This is a course on instructional design that we use as an example between our instructional designers and our College of Education. So things look very, very smooth here, and that's because we do all understand educational best practices. And so in different fields, these conversations can look very different. When you have 100 slide presentation of body diagrams for an anatomy class, those accessibility conversations look different than in these classes. But overall, the relationships and the trust that's built still helps us make progress in those areas. Oh, one more. That's me too. Okay. So I think I already kind of hit on this. In our post-development, we do have course readiness. So Ryan will teach it the first semester in the fall, and come spring, like I said, they'll check in. The instructional support team will put in dates, make any changes that she needs. And they also help support faculty that might be coming in and teaching a course for the first time. That Ryan built this course, but maybe next spring she needs to have an adjunct teach with her. So our post-development, our ISS team will help that adjunct get ready and prepare them to teach as well.
So we want to pose a couple of questions to you all. We've shared some different things that we've been doing, but we want to hear what y'all are doing too. So the first question, we just want to ask y'all, what do you think some of the benefits are of learning designer and faculty partnerships? We've shared some today, but have you seen others?
Sure. So once, because it sounds like your unit has a really special process and a template and everything, like timeline for everything. So, but once you build a relationship with a certain faculty, and then the faculty also know about the process, at least for once, that really helps for the future development. Because you already do the trust, you already know how to expect, and so that later on, the relationship and the development are much more smoother.
Absolutely. And I would say even hearing from other faculty members who went through the redesign before it was my time also helped in that same way. So Leanne, who was going to be our fourth, but she couldn't join us today, her redesigned, I think she was one of the first. And so, you know, just faculty talks to each other, just like students talk to each other. And Leanne said to me, you're going to love working with Lindsey. It's going to be a lot, but she's going to walk you through everything. She's fantastic. So then when I met Lindsey, it was like, okay, great. Like, I trust Leanne, so I now also trust Lindsey. And then we actually built trust ourselves. But you know, it helps to have that trust. And then I know when it's time for me to redesign another class, I'm going to ask for Lindsey. I may not get Lindsey.
Well, and I can just say, like, you know, I've worked with lots of faculty who've either had to kind of, you know, lone wolf it themselves in the past, and, you know, it's almost a traumatizing experience that they've had. And then really, I know in our department, our philosophy is we really are coming alongside our faculty. You know, we are really co-developing this together. And to have a partner in that experience for us and for the faculty, I think is just very, very meaningful. And someone in the chat just said, you can always learn something new, filling each other's bucket. And that's 100% true. You know, there's nothing like, you know, deliberately carving out, you know, I do weekly development meetings anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half with these faculty members. And it's like all the craziness of life kind of stops once we get on the Zoom call. And it's like, okay, you know, let's spend that first 10 minutes, you know, debrief like what's going on with you. And then, okay, well, you know, let's transition, let's get into this. And, you know, sometimes it's a therapy session, but it's always productive and it's always meaningful. You know, any kind of incremental trust, any incremental work you do, it's all worthwhile. So that's definitely our perspective.
And I can also add, I think being in a trimester program where I'm teaching the same course every trimester, there's only about a 1 week turnaround between those courses. And so for me, it's not like I have summer to stop and work on changing something in my course. And so the intentionality between that partnership, I think, is another benefit I've seen. Any other benefits or maybe some challenges in building partnerships with faculty?
Challenges are when your faculty go rogue. You did everything you did.
Yes. I promise not to do that.
I have a question about, because one of our challenges is time, and you mentioned the course release. Is that, I want to I wanted y'all to clarify what y'all mean by that. Do you mean they get time off from teaching the course while y'all are redesigning?
Yes, substitutes a class.
Mhm.
So I had one course release in the spring, and I think that's really important, especially in this program, because I advise dissertations, and large groups of dissertations. So at any given time, I'm advising probably 10 students. And that takes a lot of time and effort. And so I think if I had not been given a course release, I worry that the redesign would always be at the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
But with a course release, like our leadership has acknowledged, we realize it takes time and we are committed to supporting you. And we're going to give you this course release with the understanding that this is what you're going to have done at the end of the trimester. But so that we have dedicated time for it.
How long is one of your typical for one course? How many semesters are further design?
So the bulk of the work just takes place in the one redesign trimester, but there are a couple of meetings. Yes, where I have the release. So that's like
15
14 weeks.
Yeah.
And I will say, like Lindsay mentioned, that is not the norm across all of Baylor's development cycle. The norm is 15 weeks? No, is
I
that
think
right?
we used to have 12.
12.
We typically operate under 15.
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you heard this, and you all already said it, but to reiterate, this is an exception to the norm. It's sort of an ideal in many ways that we love to see broaden, but I think Inez would also say, yeah, this is not the norm, but the norm would be 15 weeks. The front loading of, or having an extra budget of time before that 15-week cycle, as Lindsay mentioned, to really just focus in on the mapping and the objectives.
Yeah.
Huge aspect.
So typically that looks like, that first month basically is the course map. And then once that's finished, that's usually when we bring the interactive learning experience designers in, have those early conversations about what we think an interactive or two in the course would be, what deliverables they would need to achieve those things, and build that into our modular development timeline as well. Because we're also, if they're recording video, we need scripts from them. There's a lot that goes into that. So definitely it's a luxury to be able to have that, front load work, kind of tied up, at least roughly outlined when you start the official cycle. But we had a few things in the chat. Challenges are getting buy-in from mid-range adopters. Some can view it as being told what to do and it interferes with academic freedom. Yeah.
And I think that just goes into building that relationship and that trust. Like, I'm not trying to take away or tell you what you can and can't do. I'm trying to guide you to best practices for the best student experience.
And also mentioned was lack of clear definitions in faculty and learner designer roles can be challenging. And that's absolutely true. And I think it's especially true for people who've never experienced it before. But I think one thing that we're pretty good about on our team as learning experience designers is, we become what you need to make this successful. And we're not going to die on every hill that we feel passionate about. It's like we pick our battles and, nothing's going to ever be perfect, but it's going to be better than what we had in the beginning. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, anyone else? Any thoughts? Thoughts, feelings?
Do you have challenges so we talk about a way of overcoming some of these challenges as we make sure that we're presenting ourselves as we're experts in our field, like you're experts in your field. We're the experts in this field of, instructional design and digital learning. Do you find that it can be challenging with that when you're working with faculty in the College of Ed?
I have not had that experience. No.
We don't have, we don't usually have that issue with ours, but I was just curious because of your field.
Yeah.
I will say not at Baylor, and I have
Yeah.
elsewhere,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
not even education instructors.
I will say our
Okay.
director just piped in on the chat and said, we do not use the work expert as part of our daily language. And that is true. So yeah, I think, we approach it with a lot of hopefully grace and humility, and just we really do feel like it's a service, and we want to be in service of the faculty and ultimately of our students, and usually that's enough to build a bridge.
And I think we're just so grateful for everything that they bring to the table, things that we haven't seen before. So thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all.
And thank y'all.